Hi guys, welcome to Drum Dog, and in today's lesson we are checking out ghost notes. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, ghost notes are, simply put, quiet little snare drums that we can sneak into grooves just to bring them an extra little layer of cool sounding grooviness. Now, ghost notes are never designed to stand out proud in the groove, and they're always meant to sit below and kind of not really be obvious to the listener until you focus on it. Say, the kind of thing that you would only notice if it was taken away instead of it drawing your attention in the first place. Now, with that in mind, in order to make our ghost notes sound as best as we can, the key word here is dynamic range. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean a difference in volume as big as we can make it between our backbeat and our ghost notes. Now, today's lesson is all going to be about developing that dynamic range to be as big as we can and controlling those ghost notes with the best technique we can in order to make that nice and easy for ourselves. Now, first things first, when it comes to playing different dynamics, one of the most important things we need to consider is the gears of our arm. Now, I have done a short lesson on this, so check that out here if you haven't heard of that before, but simply put, from where we play on our arm, we can achieve different volumes and different speeds quite easily. Therefore, when it comes to our ghost notes and our backbeats, we're going to focus on playing them from two different parts of our arm. Now, for our ghost notes, the perfect gear to get a nice quiet ghost note, which only wants to be a maximum of 2 inches off the snare head, super controlled. We're going to be playing it from our wrist here, just with a light drop of the wrist and then letting the rebound carry the stick back up. And that's it. Now, I know this may seem simple, but really do take your time to just practice playing ghost notes from the wrist on their own. Resist that temptation to move that elbow at all, but keep that arm super still. Just play from the wrist. It's actually harder than it looks if you've never done this before. Now, obviously, you want to be practicing this in your hand that is your regular snare hand, just for this context. So, there's our ghost notes dialed in. Now, how are we going to find a difference for our backbeat? Now, for our backbeat, instead of playing from the wrist, we're going to move one gear up and we're going to play from the elbow. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to pick up that forearm all the way up here and throw it down as hard as we can. It only actually has to be a slight little kick up of that arm from the elbow to then, still using the motion of the wrist, whip out to create our backbeat accent. So again, the differences in technique there: ghost note from the wrist, and then a backbeat from the elbow. Now, once you've got a feel for both of those techniques just on their own, let's try playing them back to back. We're going to take this really slow and we're just going to alternate between a ghost note and then an accent, and a ghost note and then an accent. Now take this really slowly and be strict with yourself. Be absolutely certain of where both of those hits are coming from. Wrist, elbow, wrist, elbow. And as it starts to feel more comfortable, slowly pick up the speed a little bit, making sure you're still keeping everything nice and smooth. There's no tension anywhere in the arm. We're not gripping it too hard. With both hits, we're still letting that stick bounce out of the pad and letting that rebound breathe. Now, that's it. Those are the techniques that we're using here, and that is the secret to a good sounding ghost note. Now, just because we understand that doesn't mean it's easy to do, so again, I can't stress enough, Take your time learning those motions and letting your body learn the difference between that ghost note and that accent. You can't take this slow enough. When you're learning techniques, it's all about putting the time in and teaching your body time and time again through repetition the best way to do it. But once we've got that dialed in, it's time to take it to the kit for our first ghost note beat, where we're still going to be thinking about a beat, but still watching that arm to make sure we know where those ghost notes are coming from. Now, as you could see there in beat number 1, we had 2 little ghost notes just next to each other, which is easy enough. Nice little couple of 16th notes. And that plays really nice from the wrist because the wrist gear can quite happily play fast enough. But as we move into beat number 2, for beat number 2, we're going to have 3 notes in a row, which is a little bit more challenging to play with the same level of control. We don't want to be bringing up the volume of those ghost notes just because there's 3 hits in a row. So take a second just to practice 3 controlled ghost notes from that wrist. Then once you're happy with that, let's take it to the kit. Now, beat number 3 today is going to be the first beat that presents us with the challenge of a ghost note straight after an accent. Now, obviously, when we've got this case, it's going to be a lot more difficult to play from the elbow for the accent and then straight away with the wrist for the ghost note after, but that is still what we want to do. We're going to have to push those motions together to play our accent from the elbow and then use the rebound of that accent to control with the wrist and play that ghost note directly after it. Now, this is a lot more challenging to keep that dynamic range there and keep our difference between our accent and our ghost note as big as we can. Resist the temptation to let that rebound come out with a much louder ghost note and where we get this kind of, where it's only slightly quieter. We still want to keep that big dynamic range. Take your time with that, and then when you're ready, let's pop it in the groove. Now, moving on to beat number 4, this time we have the same problem, but in the opposite direction. So instead of playing our ghost note directly after our accent, we're going to be playing it directly before our accent. Now, while this makes it slightly easier to keep the ghost note quiet as it's the first note, it does make it harder to give the accent enough space in the first place. Now, although this way round it makes the ghost note nice and easy to play quiet as it's the first thing we're playing, it now makes it hard to get enough volume and stick height to make our accent that much louder. Now, to make this possible, we're going to be using what's called an upstroke, where we're still playing from the wrist, but at the same time as playing from the wrist, we're going to be picking up our arm from the elbow, ready for our accent. And now nice and slowly, that's going to look like this. There's our ghost note from the wrist as we pick up the arm, and then we're coming down for our accent. So you can see we're pretty much starting to prepare for our accent from the second we're playing that ghost note. So we're playing our note from the wrist at the exact same time we're picking up the forearm from the elbow. Now this is a lot more challenging, so take your time more than you did with the others to get this feeling comfortable on a pad. So again, even as you're speeding this up, keep a close eye on that dynamic range and make sure the ghost note's lovely and quiet and that accent's really got some volume in it. Let's take it to the kit. And now finally, for beat number 5, we're going to be giving ourselves a real challenge here. And we're going to combine the difficulties of the 2 previous grooves to create a ghost note followed by an accent followed by a ghost note. Now, for this, we're going to use exactly the same techniques we used for the accent and then the ghost note, and the ghost note and then the accent, but obviously merged together to create this ghost note, accent, ghost note kind of situation. So we're going to be playing that upstroke the same time we pick up the elbow. Then we're going to be playing our accent. Then we're going to be controlling that rebound for that final little ghost note. Now this is the hardest one of the lot by far, so really take your time because it's all about dialing in those techniques in order to make this sound as groovy as it can on the kit. Now, I hope all of this has really helped explain to you guys how important it is to keep that dynamic range in your ghost notes for your grooves. Now, even if you didn't make it all the way through those 5 beats, because that last one is a real killer, even if the one thing you take away from this lesson is just to keep an eye on the volume of your ghost notes, because letting them get too loud can really ruin that effect and take away from the pocket of the whole groove in the first place. Now, I really hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. If you want to see more lessons like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you want to check out some full lesson packs, including our Ralph Roll guest lesson pack, where he delves a little bit deeper into ghost notes and grace notes, don't forget to check out our channel, drum.dog. We'll see you again soon.